If you really want to manage your time like the top 1%, the very first thing you got to do is stop following all that old productivity advice. And why is that? Well, because for most of us, it's just not working. Today, we're going to break down a completely different system, one that's all about shifting your mindset to make room for what actually matters. Okay, so let's just dive right in with the million-dollar question. How on earth is it possible that people like Jack Dorsey can run Twitter and Square at the same time? Or how does Elon Musk juggle multiple, literally world-changing companies all in the same week that you and I get? And this right here is the central paradox. It's not about having more time. It can't be. Everybody, from you to me to them, gets the exact same 168 hours. So if they're not working with more hours in the day, what is their secret? What are they doing differently? Well, here it is. This is the big secret. The highest performers don't manage their time, they manage their attention. Look, things like time blocking and to-do lists, they're fine, they're useful tools, but they're just step one. The real leverage, the absolute game changer, is managing where you point your focus, your energy, and your impact. That's the real currency. So how do you actually do that? That's the big question, right? Well, the framework we're going to explore is a really simple but powerful one called the 3-2-1 system. And it's designed to get you thinking less about counting the hours on your calendar and more about maximizing the quality of your attention. Let's start with the first part of this system, the 3 roles. So many people struggle with feeling productive because they're playing the wrong game for their current position. Think about Taylor Swift for a second. In her early days, she was a maker. She was writing songs, recording music. Today, she's a global enterprise. The system that worked for her back then would completely crash and burn now because her role has fundamentally, completely changed. And the most crucial point here is just knowing which of these 3 roles you're in right now. Are you mainly a maker, the one doing the hands-on work? Are you a marker who's reviewing and shaping the work of other people? Or are you a multiplier, orchestrating the whole effort? Just having that self-awareness, that is the essential first step. Now, what's really fascinating about this is how your actual job changes at each level. As a maker, all your value comes from that heads-down, deep, focused work. But as a marker, you have to transition into being more of an editor. Your job is giving sharp feedback and delegating, not grabbing the keyboard and redoing the work yourself. And then, as a multiplier, your focus shifts again. It's not even about the work anymore. It's about getting the right people on the bus and aligning them all around a shared vision. And this quote from Marshall Goldsmith just perfectly captures why this is so critical. The very habits that made you a brilliant maker, that need to control every little detail of the final product, can become your biggest weakness when you're supposed to be a marker or a multiplier. It's an absolute recipe for burnout and frustration for you and everyone around you. Okay, let's move on to the second part of the system, which adds another really critical layer. See, it's not just about your role, it's also about the environment you're in. And there are 2 very distinct zones, wartime and peacetime. During peacetime, things are pretty stable. The goal is steady growth. You follow the playbook, you hire great people, you empower them. But during wartime, that's a whole different ballgame. It's a crisis. Survival is the only thing that matters. All bets are off, and leaders have to jump right into the trenches. Trying to use peacetime rules during wartime isn't just a bad idea, it can be catastrophic. And there is no better example of this than the story of Airbnb. Its founder, Brian Chesky, nearly drove his own company into the ground by applying the right advice in exactly the wrong zone. So between 2016 and early 2020, Airbnb was basically in peacetime. Chesky was doing everything by the book. He was the model multiplier. He hired smart executives and he got out of their way. But the company became bloated, growth started to slow, costs were ballooning, and the core product experience, the very thing people loved, it started to suffer. Then COVID hit, and literally overnight, the company was plunged into wartime. Its revenue just evaporated. Chesky had to make a really radical choice. He stepped back in, he flattened the entire management structure, and he became deeply personally involved in every single critical product decision again. He went from being a multiplier all the way back to being a marker. And the result of that huge strategic pivot? It was incredible. The now leaner company shipped over 500 product improvements in just 3 years and became consistently profitable. It's such a powerful lesson. The zone you're in dictates the role you have to play. So, we've got the 3 roles and the 2 zones. That brings us to the final and I think most important piece of the whole system. You have to identify your one non-negotiable. This is the question that truly separates the top 1% from pretty much everyone else. And I want you to really think about this for a second. In your current role and in your current zone, what is the single most valuable thing that only you can deliver? What's your unique contribution? A few years ago, when I was the CEO of an AI company, we were in total wartime, and I was becoming the bottleneck for everything. When I finally asked myself this question, the answer was just crystal clear. My one non-negotiable was building mission-driven relationships. So I focused all my best energy there, on recruiting, on our culture, and on our key customer partnerships. Everything else, it had to be delegated. Now, you might be thinking, okay, that sounds great, but how do you delegate everything else without it all just falling apart? Well, the answer is the final secret. The best leaders don't manage time or even tasks, they manage trust. Trust management is all about leading by coaching and unblocking, not by controlling and micromanaging. The absolute gold standard here is the relationship between Steve Jobs and Johnny Ive. Jobs was obsessed with design details, but Ive has said he never felt micromanaged. And why is that? Because Jobs showed up as a partner to learn and to help, not as a boss to command and control. And the great news is you can build this trust systematically. With a brand new teammate, you work right alongside them to give them comfort and build their confidence. With an experienced pro, you give clarity through guidance and review. And with a true expert, you just give them context and get out of their way, stepping in only when they need you to unblock something. It's a flexible, trust-based approach. So, let's bring it all together. The 3-2-1 system gives you this amazing framework to manage your attention like the best in the world. First, you identify which of the 3 roles you're in. Second, you diagnose which of the 2 zones you're operating in. And third, you define your one non-negotiable priority. And please remember, you absolutely do not need to be a CEO to use this. This is a universal framework. It's for focusing on what counts, whether that's with your team at work, with your family, or with your creative partner. So now the question really becomes, what are you going to do with this? What is one small, concrete step you can take this week to start managing your attention, and not just your time? You don't have to overhaul your entire life at once. Just pick one. Just define your role, name your zone, write down your one non-negotiable on a sticky note, or just delegate one small, repeatable task. In the end, this isn't about becoming some kind of productivity machine. It's about making time for the things that give you energy and meaning. Your time is finite. Your attention is everything.